Welcome to the September edition of This Month in Payroll for 2024. I'm Rowan Geddes, National Leader of PwC's Payroll Advisory and Operations Practice. In this month's edition, we will explore the latest Payday Super implementation details that were just released by the government. We'll also review the key messages provided by Justice Hatcher, the President of the Fair Work Commission, in our Workforce Leaders Forum. And we'll consider the most recent case dealing with flexible working rights. But first, Payday Super. Payday Super was announced in the 2023-24 budget with an expected start date of 1st of July 2026. Since that announcement, the government has set up consultation and design committees to explore how to give effect to their intentions. This month, a fact sheet was released providing further implementation details about Payday Super. Noting that the legislation relating to Payday Super won't be introduced into Parliament before the end of this calendar year, and there still could be refinements to the implementation details, the fact sheet suggests that Payday Super could bring with it significant and in some cases even favourable changes in how SG works. Under the proposed implementation details, superannuation will become payable into an employee's super fund within 7 calendar days of each payday. If a super payment is not made within 7 calendar days, then it will become liable to the superannuation guaranteed charge. There is an exception that will be applied in the first 2 weeks of employment, and also super on small and irregular payments won't be payable until the next regular payday occurs. There's a change around how superannuation guaranteed charges are going to be levied. Currently, they are levied on salary and wages, which includes overtime, rather than ordinary times earnings. This creates complexity, requiring a recalculation of superannuation and typically increases the super owed to the employee. In great news, it is proposed that the super guaranteed charge will now also be levied on ordinary times earnings, same as the super guarantee, which is going to simplify the process significantly. In further good news, the SG charge, which is currently non-deductible, will now become tax deductible. A notional earnings charge will be calculated on the SG shortfall at the general interest charge rate rather than the current flat 10% per annum, and that will be compounded daily. The GIC currently is 11.36% per annum. The $20 per person per quarter administration charge will be changed to a percentage of the shortfall and, importantly, can be reduced where the disclosure is made voluntarily and the employer has a good compliance history. On the other hand, there will be increased penalties and interest where an SGC charge is raised by the tax office and is not paid within 28 days. From an infrastructure perspective, under the proposals, the time for super funds to allocate contributions to employee accounts will be reduced from 20 days to 3 days. Improvements will be made to SuperStream to improve error messaging. Pleasingly, choice of fund rules will be amended to make it easier for employees to nominate their super fund when they start a new job, including employers being able to show employees their existing stapled fund during the onboarding process. And finally, both ordinary time earnings and the attached superannuation liability will need to be reported in STP to ensure that superannuation guarantee can be correctly and quickly identified. These proposals seem to indicate that the government will use the implementation of Payday Super to address some of the frustrating complexities that currently sit within the SGC system, which is a great thing. We will continue to monitor the developments in Payday Super over the next 12 to 18 months ahead of the 1 July 2026 kickoff. Last month, PwC was pleased to host Justice Hatcher at our latest Workforce Leaders Forum. This gave us the opportunity to hear the Fair Work Commission's views about how employers should be responding to the significant changes currently happening in the employment environment. Justice Hatcher opened by looking back at the changes introduced to improve enterprise bargaining. Between March 2019 and March 2022, the number of employees covered by enterprise agreements had dropped by almost 25%, due largely to the complexities of the boot and difficulties in resolving impasses in the bargaining process. The reforms introduced to arrest this decline included limiting the scenarios to be considered in a boot model, the introduction of intractable bargaining declarations to allow the Fair Work Commission to resolve impasses, and the introduction of multi-employer bargaining. While multi-employer bargaining has not really taken off, the rest of the changes have been more successful. There were 20% more applications approved over the last 12 months, and the median time taken to process an enterprise agreement application is now down to 16 days, with 96% of all agreements lodged being approved. For comparisons purposes, 6 years ago, the median approval time was 76 days and the approval rate was only 82%. There are now as many employees covered by an enterprise agreement as there were back in 2019, and it is expected that this will continue to rise in the next few months as new enterprise agreements are signed, particularly in the retail sector. The second reform Justice Hatcher commented on was gender equality in the industrial relations process. Under the reforms, the Fair Work Commission is now required to consider whether the work value assumptions behind a minimum wage for an industry have historically been undervalued due to gender. The significant rises in minimum wages for aged care workers is a good example of the Fair Work Commission taking steps to correct such gender-based discrimination. Looking forward, Justice Hatcher nominated nurses, midwives, healthcare professionals, dental assistants, pharmacists, early childhood educators, and social service and disability workers as the next professions to be reviewed, which should happen by December 2024. A more recent change that has come into play is the Same Job, Same Pay legislation, which applies to regulated labour hire arrangements. Since its introduction in December 2023, there have been 42 Same Job, Same Pay applications lodged. Over half of these have come out of the black coal industry, with the balance in the meat and the airline industries. Justice Hatcher noted that in most cases, employers have agreed to the changes proposed in the applications. So the FWC is still waiting on a test case to help refine the Same Job, Same Pay interpretations. There are 2 test cases listed for hearings in October and November, and we'll keep you up to date with those developments. The hottest topic on the agenda was the commencement of the right to disconnect rules. We have discussed previously that the right to disconnect provides employees with an avenue to request not to be connected outside of hours, rather than it being a blanket ban on employers contacting their employees out of hours. When discussing this new right, Justice Hatcher made the point that it works both ways. An employer cannot approach an employee unreasonably. Conversely, an employee cannot refuse to be contacted outside of working hours where that refusal is unreasonable. Justice Hatcher noted that this test will be a subjective test and will vary depending on the nature of the role and the industry. For example, there are different expectations for a 9-to-5 worker versus a nurse, an offshore oil rigger, a firefighter. In addition, the mode of communication should be considered. Approaches via personal email, work email, texts, or after-hours phone calls may elicit different responses as well as the time of the after-hours contact. Given this variability, the Fair Work Commission is planning to hold off on issuing guidelines until more test cases have passed through. So, how should employers respond to these new rules? Justice Hatcher offered the following actions. First, undertake an audit of the extent to which positions will have requirements to contact employees outside of hours. Second, develop a policy properly publicised which sets out the parameters for when people can be contacted and can't be contacted. And third, run appropriate training of managers and supervisors. As Justice Hatcher noted, if employees have a reasonable understanding of the parameters in which the after-hours contact might occur, and that's seen as reasonable in the context of the employer's needs and their own terms and conditions of their employment, that should help alleviate the need to take the matter to the Fair Work Commission for dispute resolution. Finally, a question was raised in Q&A regarding the casual conversion rules, which do not appear to have had the take-up that perhaps was expected. In response, Justice Hatcher agreed that most research indicates that the large majority of casual employees want to be casual employees. However, he recommended that employers can complete a review to see where the casual conversion requests are likely to come from. Cohorts of casuals that do appear to be seeking a shift to permanent employment include those that have been employed for a long time and are already working close to full-time hours, and those employees who are seeking more hours of employment. As an aside, a reminder for employers that as of the 26th of August 2024, casual employees must now be provided with a Casual Employment Information Statement, which has been updated, and this statement must be reissued after 6 months and each 12 months of employment thereafter. We are grateful for Justice Hatch's presentation, which contains such great content. If you missed the forum, you're still able to watch it on demand by scanning the QR code on your screen. And finally, we turn to a flexible work case, Deborah Lloyd versus ANZ Banking Group, which has once again been settled in favour of the employer. In this case, Ms. Lloyd, a 62-year-old analyst, sought to work 100% from home because of her fear of catching COVID. The application was rejected because ANZ's hybrid model already provided its workers with a significant amount of flexibility, and Ms. Lloyd had provided no information that indicated she had a medical condition that could make her particularly vulnerable to COVID-19. ANZ also noted the positive impact that workplace attendance has on individual and team performance arising from collaboration, feedback, and workplace learning. In an attempt to accommodate Ms. Lloyd, ANZ offered alternatives, including providing her with an anchor desk away from others in the office, providing additional breaks during the day so she can leave the office to get some fresh air and use an outdoor space or a meeting room for lunch. However, Ms. Lloyd rejected these alternatives and admitted in the case that there would be no circumstances in which she would be willing to attend the office. When considering this case, it is important to note that there is no general right to request a flexible working arrangement, such as changes in hours of work, patterns of work, or location of work from home. Rather, there are limited, specified circumstances in which an employee is entitled to request a change. These circumstances are pregnancy, caring responsibilities, disability, age over 55, and family and domestic violence. However, even then, simply falling into an eligible category doesn't entitle a worker to seek a flexible work situation. Rather, there needs to be a nexus between one of the circumstances and the flexible working request. For example, where an employee is required to be home on a Thursday or Friday for caring responsibilities, they don't have a right to request a work from home situation on Monday and Tuesday as well because there is no nexus. In this case, Deputy President Ian Masson found that while Ms. Lloyd was over the age of 55, simply relying on her age and a general concern of illness arising from COVID is not sufficient. There needed to be evidence provided about the employee's specific underlying medical condition that would make them more vulnerable to COVID to create that nexus with the flexible working request. Separately, the Deputy President also noted that ANZ had reasonable business grounds for rejecting the flexible work request and that it had genuinely tried to reach an agreement with Ms. Lloyd. This latest case is another example of the Fair Work Commission ruling in favour of the employer in relation to flexible work requests, and reinforces the difference between employers offering flexible work options to employees as a matter of policy and employees having a right to work flexibly, which is in reality a far more limited right. And that's it for our September edition of This Month in Payroll. If you would like to revisit any of our prior updates, they are available on our website at pwc.com.au/payroll. And if you have any questions or need for support, please reach out to myself or your usual PwC contact. Until next time, have a great month in payroll.